All right. Thank you everyone for waiting. We are now good to go. So, okay, let's give these guys a round of applause. Thank you for setting it out. All right. So, first off, thank you guys for being here. And I hope that the food is great because we are going to need that energy for the discussions that we are going to have tonight. So, whenever I join tech events, I always go home full in food, but also full in the knowledge I get. So, I hope I make the chance to impart that to you guys, and I hope you get to pick up something for your projects or your startups, your companies, whatever you're working on right now. So the what we're going to discuss is vibing with startups and enterprises. This is a list of practical vibe coding guides for every build. Whether you're again, it's a weekend project, whether it's an early stage project trying to find some PMF, or whether you're an enterprise with huge clients, you will find something of use here. So if you want to join along, actually, oh, that's a long URL, but you can. Never mind, I'll just walk through it. But this is a vibe coded site actually. So, really useful. It's my documentation for my own stuff. So, quick round of introductions. This was built actually by two people. I have someone with me, supposedly. He's my co-founder. His name's Pats. I'm the one on the left, last man. And we have built a lot of stuff. This is my major startup right now. We are called Tailflow. We are a data platform for e-commerce in Southeast Asia. And some of our bigger clients are brands that you're very well familiar of. You probably would have bought from them from the last 10/10 sale. But among that, I built a few other stuff like I have this GPS alarm for commuters who want to be woken up when they get to their destination. Because I do that, I sleep and then I get surprised, and then I miss my stop. So projects like these that are just quality of life or things that are for business. And yeah, as I was talking about Pilflow, our data platform. And this is what it looks like. Would you believe that the data behind this or the infrastructure behind it was vibe coded? Asterisk, okay, vibe coded with the frameworks that we have been doing. So the way we set this up, there's like dozens of ETLs running from, imagine, different platforms, Shopify, Lazada, Shopee, TikTok, but also the ad platforms like Meta, Google, and the list just goes on. And the infrastructure behind that is going to be a challenge, but it has been a breeze thanks to vibe coding. Next is just a couple of stuff from our other contributor, Pats. He's part of Thinking Machines, and he's been a team lead and head of data science. So all of these, whether you're in the niche of machine learning engineering, cloud infrastructure, data, or just development in general, will prove to be helpful. So that's our main point tonight. Startup and enterprise problems can be vibe coded the right way. So that's what we will deep dive into the right way. And just to set some context, I'm sure you guys, how many are not familiar with vibe coding tools like Cursor, Claude CLI, V0? Okay, everyone seems to be familiar. That's great. So I want to go deeper again. I want to go deeper as a first step because I'm pretty sure everyone has tried to spin up a website, an app, or maybe just tinker around with a side project with tools. But you probably would have realized that it's not, there's a limit that you hit with it. Like you wouldn't probably serve, the idea may not be that validated, or your design may not have been fleshed out as nicely, or maybe when you try to get some users, something crashes and there's so many bugs. And all of these things that mm, are hinting that you may have not validated the entire software development lifecycle properly. And for those who are not builders or not very familiar with software development lifecycle, only part of it is the actual development. A whole lot of it is belongs to testing, ideation, getting the bit what to build from the product, the why, and that's what most vibe coders who are riding the hype fall through. They don't realize they kind of need to be specific what to build and why you're building it instead of just building it. And that's why vibe coding, the platforms themselves, the coding tools, are not the full suite. And let's talk about that for now. What does the rest of the suite look like? And by no means is this an extensive list, but I just want to walk through how I do my validation of products. And some of these have actually generated revenue. Some of them have been in enterprise, and all of these kind of fit in together. Think of them not as a fixed flow, but more of a uh, an idea or the framework, just a general one. So usually I start off with Perplexity. They have this tool called Deep Research or Labs, where you can just prompt it everything that you want to know about. And then it's going to do the deep research, go through all the documentation for you. And how that helped me is instead of spending hours like going through this concept, let's say an industry, you want to learn about real estate and you want to build an app for it. If you are not that deep into that real estate, you might need to take up hours researching, understanding the industry. But thanks to a tool like that, let me show you real quick what I have done. With a tool like that, you get, let's say, I was validating my startup idea because I was at the Cebu Pacific Hackathon meetup last Saturday. So with there, I asked it, hey, I want to learn everything about the airline industry and stuff that needs solutions. And it was able to save me some effort. And I see some people laughing because in my Facebook post, I did this. There's this post about gaslighting AI to make the prompts better. Something I do is I tell it you are the GOAT, the LeBron James for this task. Make no mistakes. Trust me, it works. Okay, I don't know why. I don't know who built the models, but it works and it helps out. And you can see here, it's here. You're the LeBron James of creating startup ideas. It works. Okay, don't blame me. Okay, but just going through what it was able to do, as you can see here, it goes rather pretty in depth because some of these are real problems that I myself was not familiar of. Anybody here in the airline industry, specifically the airline industry? Okay, not anyone. So we're all builders here. But you guys know that there's a market gap right now where people who want to balikbayans, they want to send stuff home. The packages usually take like months because of shipping, right? There's air freight, but it is more expensive. But there's an opportunity to combine air freight, like package air freight as a bundle, and then send it home, and it's roughly the same cost. So just be that aggregator tool, send it home for a fixed price. The end user, the OFWs, they get to send the packages in a fraction of the time at the same price. Now that is something that would be useful, and that's something I didn't know because I don't work in the airline industry, but I could build it. So that's the thing with us, generally, us developers, us builders. We can build anything, but what do we build? This framework, this tool has been helping me out a lot with that. If you want, like you can probably prompt it yourself when you get home, like, I want to learn about this industry, let's say agriculture. If you want to learn more about agriculture, the problems they have, doing research like this can definitely help you out a lot. So after I do my research, sorry, give me one sec. After I do my research, I like to use Claude for prompt building, where I it can expand on the prompt really, really nicely for me. It gets my idea, but prepares it for the AI to build it so much better. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's pull up Claude. Okay, one sec. Okay. See, I was about to type here the LeBron James. Okay. Here I had an there. You're the LeBron James of building prompts. Please fix this prompt and make a V0 website mobile responsive. So it's a chain. I had a website that I built in V0 and I had the vision, but I wanted to make it mobile responsive. Instead of telling V0, make this mobile responsive, I made Claude create a prompt for V0 to make it mobile responsive. And it was actually like pretty good. It did make it fully mobile responsive. So here, just so we can read through it. You are tasked with conducting a primary objective, the mobile first requirements. I would not have listed this, but because I was able to ask Claude to do it, it was able to make, like, you know how in machine learning, garbage in, garbage out, but good stuff in, good stuff out. That's literally what we have here. And we have Claude to be the transformer for it. Now, is Claude the best tool? For now, I feel that it is. All of this are just vibes, okay? You do what works for you, but this is what found me a lot of success. If you prefer GPT or if that's what you have, you like it more, definitely this could work. So don't limit yourself to the model. I would implore all of you guys to just test it as well. Vibe it out. That's what vibe coding is for. Excuse me. So going through a few of the other stuff here, like it's very in depth on what you would expect from a front end, typography, navigation. It's touch friendly. So if you're not a front end savvy developer, you might forget about touches and holds and hovers, all of those states. Now, after you build your prompt in depth, sorry, that's not the right slide. Okay. After you build your prompt in depth, after stuff you've researched on, I now sometimes just use GPT for general use. The way I use it is if there's a minor concept or back and forth that I want to go through, I use the voice mode and or just a transcribe mode because it's so much easier for me to convey the idea when talking, like I'm doing right now. And I just have sometimes I have conversations with GPT that took like 30 minutes because we're just going back and forth on this idea that does this make sense? Oh no, okay, let's optimize that, let's fix it. Okay, does this make sense now? Still no? Okay, let's do it. And if you want, you can also probably do the clone thing and prompt it again to be good at this thing. But in any case that it's not you don't add it, it's still very helpful nonetheless. Okay, sorry about that. Hello? Uh, okay. Okay, nice. Better. All right. And then lastly, for a specialized tool, I like using V0 for my front end because it's well integrated with Vercel. So and your deployments are nice. It's probably the best at Next.js because it's made by the same company. Really helpful nonetheless. Like I tried to create front ends with other tools, CLI tools, Codex, Claude Code, but in terms of front end, V0 is really the most helpful. And the way I do my front end, actually, the way I do my projects is a couple of pointers. Sorry, I didn't get to write them down. But the pointers are, I like to keep a monorepo as much as I can. Okay, you can service like thousands of paying customers with a monorepo. So don't dwell on that. By the time that you're worried about your infrastructure, you have already made a lot of money. So don't make the infrastructure your main problem. So a monorepo, that's one. Next is uh after I set up the monorepo, I first build out the UI. I don't worry about the backend, but I tell it to make for the front end the way it uses context and hooks and all of those stuff. If you're using your app, tell it to be aware of that so that it doesn't file 50 states in one page. And then once it's aware of once it's in a monorepo and it's aware of at least make sure that it's doing code right, the last of that I do is in the backend, I still manage it myself, but that's when I create what I'll show you later, a very in-depth rule set for the tool, whether it's Claude Code, your Claude.md, or your cursor rules, or whichever you're using. There are these artifacts that you need to create to make sure you steer the AI in the right direction. And lastly, I just want to mention the CLI tools. There's so many of them right now. One time I had four in one screen. I had Claude Code, Gemini, Q by AWS, and Codex. And I also was trying out Kilo Code. And all of them, I tasked them to do the same thing. I tasked them to make a website. They all had their different variations, but nonetheless, like I'll leave it to you to vibe it out which one you feel is better. But for my most successful ones, it's Codex and Claude Code. And they're the most efficient as well in terms of costing. I never go beyond $20 per month. All right. So that's the whole first step of training AI tools because there's so many of them and there are specialties that you can optimize one for. Just make it focus on that thing, make it very good at. The way V0 is for front end and the way Claude Code is for my back end, so on and so forth. So does that make sense for everyone? Copy? Like, is it clear? All right. Amazing. Okay, okay. Next. I just want to gloss through the other topics, which is spending more time setting up. And what I mean by that is look at this Claude.md guide that we have. This is what we have in our repository. It's what Claude ingests for every prompt, just so it's aware of the whole code base. And let's go through the top ideas for each one. Repository structure, just so it's aware it's a monorepo. Development commands. So if you're using a toolkit like make, UV, for JavaScript runtimes, it's which ones use npx, but sorry, npm bun, your bundler, and if you're using Docker as well, if you have database migrations, us we are Python savvy, so we prefer Alembic. But if your backend is in JavaScript Next.js, you can use Drizzle, but you have to tell the AI that that is what you're using. For code quality as well, we're including linting, formatting, testing, and the way we set up for local and deployments, it's also aware. So it knows that, okay, when using these env variables, do it this way. And yeah, like that. And then most of these are, imagine your full documentation for your project. Just put it in a nicely formatted markdown. So this is parsed, but it's actually a markdown in the claude.md file, .md. And that way, you can rest assured that it's always steering in the right direction. And I would recommend if you're using Claude, you can use /init every time you make a massive upgrade. That way, it's aware that you're burning a bit of tokens, but that way, you know that the next runs are much better. So yeah, just a few more points here. Daisy UI, we're using the component library and some shared components, database, everything you need to know about the project, put that in your config files. Because every R you put into setting up your AI is 10 hours saved of debugging it. Or maybe more. Like sometimes I did a 1 to 20 efficiency ratio. So keep that in mind. And last point that I want to make is I want you guys to use MCPs more. So MCPs, very timely. Just earlier this morning, there was a Fireship video. But two that I love the most for MCPs. So just for those who may not be familiar yet, MCP is a way for your agent, your AI, to connect to an external source. It's like an API for agents. And I use MCP for documentation. So Context 7 is our go-to. Basically, whatever library there is, like JS, MongoDB, Vercel, it your AI is aware. Because sometimes, let's say, in our case, Daisy UI went from V4 to V5. And there's a lot of changes with it. And the models are trained on the older versions and the older code, the older documentation. So it gets things wrong. So to correct that, it's not gonna take a lot. Just use the Context 7 MCP. And lastly, Figma, because I'm not a front-end savvy guy. I'm a back-end infrastructure guy. But when I have a UI UX designer to build something for me, I just tell my Claude Code, hey, build this out. Here's the Figma link. And then it's going to build it out as accurate as it can be. So still not the best human level, but it gets you very far and still gets you like 95% of the job done. Okay, so there are a few more for MCPs, but I would suggest just like check out the Fireship video. He talks about Stripe. There are a few more I forgot, but yeah, check it out if you want to. And to wrap things up, here are some things I would implore you guys to try. So recently, the planning mode for Claude Code, Cursor, I don't think GPT has one yet, is very helpful because it gets to spec out what you want to be built. And I want to say abuse those modes every time. Just use that. So you know that at the high level, it knows what it's gonna do. 1, 2, 3, gets the job done. So there are two things for that. One is that are also on the same level. First is GitHub spec-driven development. It's a new library in GitHub. Basically, what it does is planning mode. Again, it's not just pure execution. You get the AI to spell out the tasks for you so that it executes in proper order and you have a high level of what it does. And lastly, AWS Cairo, the new IDE, it's also built for that. So if you want, it will force you to be spec driven, which honestly is really good. As developers, right? Being spec driven is really good. So that's all that I have for vibe coding from startups to enterprises. It helped us in our side projects to our main projects that are now being pitched to and evaluated and invested in. So it gets you really far and it gets you off the ground running real quick. So I hope you guys learned a lot and thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of the night. I'm hearing.
You can take questions.
Yes. Yes, correct. We do have a Q&A. So,
5 minutes.
all right. Yeah, we have 5 minutes for questions. How many of you guys learned? I'm going to be the first one to ask. How many of you guys learned something? All right. Nice. Thank you. Okay. Context, the slide deck was just prepared this morning. So sorry for the short practice. I hope you still learned either way. I had 2 hours. But thank you. All right.
Iba ano pa klase na? Hindi, how do like
Just change the map. Practice one differently.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. So first of all, thank you for learning for this one. I learned a lot actually. So the question is, I think you've described your process from ideation to creation and onwards. The question is, how about QA?
Good.
Any insight on that part of the process?
Okay. Really good question. Thank you. So I'm sure everyone heard the question is how about the QA step for the life cycle? There are AI tools that are built for that. If one of them that comes to mind is CodeRabbit, it's something that a lot of open source repositories already use. And I think enterprises as well. So if you're looking for a specific toolkit, what it does is whenever you make a PR, it just does a review for you, checks for any bugs, make sure that nothing is broken. But outside of CodeRabbit, I believe there's Cursor Bug Bot. They're building it out as well. But the whole concept here is AI reviewed PRs. Now, for myself, recently, before I even make a PR, as the last step of my CLI tool or my Cursor, my IDE, I tell it, do a git diff and check for any potential in inconsistencies or bugs. And I also tell it to refer against the document that we started with. So that way, its whole goal, you can spin up a new chat for it, but that way you can give it the context that, okay, here's the goal of this commit. If you do a diff, check that it was able to do it right. And it's generally a lot better, even in massive code bases, because the diff just like highlights the real important ones, and its context would be context aware if the cursor rules were set up right. Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry, this will just clarify the question. So I think you've explained about QA in terms of code. No, right?
Mhm.
So what are you asking the user? What I'm asking for is the user
Oh, as a QA person.
QA for as a person, but how to ensure that, for example, whatever ideation was
Mhm.
at the start is actually what was created at the end, right?
Oh, for that, actually, I would do the final validation myself. So, yeah. So, albeit we have all of these guardrails put into place, we have the instructions spelled out for the AI. It's still our final step, me and my co-founder, that we make sure we are very product oriented. We are very UX oriented as people. So we check that does it animate right? Does it feel right? So generally, what I would do for that, if you have something that's AI generated, is one, check it for yourself. But two, if you feel that you'd want to get external feedback, that's also super helpful. And maybe that could be the last step. Like, what's it, you feel like it's really fully out. But the best suggestion really I would give is test it out extensively for yourself. Because if you think about it, you just saved like 90% of your time. So there's now a lot more time to deep dive into the exact feelings that he has. All right. Thank you so much for that question. One more question. Yeah, one more question. Anyone?
The Go plug MD setup the Pure folder here. Was that per project or is it a normal one?
Okay. So the Plod MV that I showed earlier, let me pull it up again. Uh, Okay, sorry. The Flood MD that I showed earlier is per project. So you can also do it kind of two parts. If you know your project is going to be huge, you would have one for, in my case, my startup, I have infra and backend and front end. So I have 3 repositories because I have infrastructure as code for infra. And I have different rules for each one. So it's up to you on how much time you actually want to, how much you need it. So as a kind of general rule of thumb, you could get like, again, 1,000 users with Vercel and some it's auto scaling, serverless, and a basic database and a monorepo. So you wouldn't need to separate infras. But in our case, the app is already very complex. That's why we wanted to opt it out. And I would say it's a vibe again, based on how deep, how complex, and how much time we have. All right, thank you.